Well, all right, do not adjust your video screens. I say video because it could be watching it on the TV, you could be watching it on your computer, it could be watching it on your phone. But your long-lost buddies are back with the star of the show. Here's Riggo.
And we'd like to say you asked for it, but you didn't. But we're here anyway. Well, Tiny, I was going to say, because I've been thinking about this for a while, because I knew we was going to, crank the machine back up. I was thinking, I hope everybody can understand that I've got a pickup truck as a 2005 Dodge Ram, and you've seen it maybe, but not recently. But I mean, the body on it.
You kind of been hiding it, I noticed.
Yeah, well, it's
going further back on the property.
It's basically me and the truck are one and the same. The rust on that truck, the corrosion, and that's kind of like, we're going to get the gears kind of loosen up like the Tin Man on the Wizard of Oz. Oil, because my gears haven't been lubed in a while. So anyway. I'll keep going. It's good. It's fun to be back. Have a few laughs here.
Well, 2005, as you say, is an automobile. You say, oh, that's not that long ago. And you realize, okay, it's almost 20 years ago.
It's funny. Oh, I don't want to jump into that yet, but I have a little bit that was going to do on, why am I waiting for it? We'll just go ahead and
let's
free
do
flow,
it.
Right? Well, first of all, does the number 3 billion, like 200 million, mean anything to you? Probably does. It doesn't mean anything to you. But I looked this up because we're talking about, like you said, time, right? And that's a fascinating thing. I don't think a human mind is capable of really comprehending what time is, or how it relates, because it changes as you get older, I think. But a little bit over 3 billion seconds, with maybe, like I said, 200 million, throw it in. You realize how much time that is?
No, can't comprehend it.
100 years.
That's 100 years?
If you live to be 100 years old, you get a little bit over 3 billion seconds. That's it. It's kind of hard to think of your life in terms of seconds. We're so used to thinking in terms of years. We kind of got a handle on years. But when you really start delving into time, it changes, because, as I tell everybody, and I think everybody is probably just as aware of it as I would be, that when you think about the time you started lower school, we'll say first grade, kindergarten. I went to first grade. We didn't have kindergarten. The time it took to get from there, 12 years, to graduating as a senior, I'm telling you what, that was like a century to me.
Right.
It was like time did not move. Now, I can go outside and go for a 45-minute walk on the canal at a pretty good clip. And first of all, I almost have to, snort cocaine to get myself in the mood to do it. No,
get you fired up?
I don't. But
to get you fired
up. Fired up. And I swear, it's only 45 minutes. And I'm going, this will never end. I don't understand how it works. And now, as you get older, there's a couple things going on here. One is that it seems like you can't keep track of time. In other words, like you just said, the 2005 truck, that truck, and then you go, oh, wait a second, that's 20 years ago, right? And that's what keeps dawning on me. And what's happened to me is now I've become my dad.
Right.
My dad, and that, it's kind of, everybody I'm sure is experiencing this. I stop and think back about the stories he used to tell us about growing up in Jamestown, Kansas, and all the stuff they had, and all the pranks they pulled on the farm boys who'd come to town, and they'd mess with them, and then they'd run through the backyards. And of course, they knew where the clotheslines were, and the farm boys didn't. And they were, they were pulling their usual bullshit on the farm boys. And of course, I'm part farm boy too, so I'd have been right in the middle of that. But then, and so all that stuff, and how quaint or ancient, if you will, archaic, I'm not sure the right adjective, of what life must have been like for him. When my mom grew up on an 80-acre farm in Minnesota, just about 60 miles north of Twin Cities. Her parents and herself, she was born in 1920, well, they had, basically they had one bedroom and then the attic, and the kids slept in the attic. Parents heated by wood in the wintertime. And, you're talking about winters that get down 15, 20 below zero. They're out milking cows twice a day in a barn that's not heated by hand. So you grew up with that. They had an outhouse, they had running water in the house, but it was just cold water, and it just ran out on the ground through the drain,
Well, they were the generation of people like, I had to go to school and walk in 3 miles of snow. No, they were good for it.
And then if they really, but you know what? If you went back to my mom's period, 1920s, right, when she was a young girl, take it back another 50 years and what was. In other words, it's like everybody gets it easier than the last generation, basically. So far, it's been that way. I mean, it clearly things could turn around and start regressing, I'm guessing. But the point I'm trying to make here is with my father and telling us these stories of what it was like, you kind of think to yourself that you're going, wow, that was the old days back then, you know. It's like, and then I look back on it, which at times it seems like it wasn't that long ago, and at other times, but literally it was a century ago because it was in the 20th century, not
right.
the 21st. But then you realize that, wow, it has, because I think of riding my bike in Centralia. Centralia, when I was growing up as a kid, it had 3 grocery stores, town of 500 people now. And it wasn't unusual throughout the entire Midwest for all these little towns, which have all kind of faded away over the
right.
years, some of them literally.
There's no industry.
Everybody went to the city, you know, and nobody came back. Some of them became farmers. Then actually that got tougher and tougher, and things got more expensive. Then all that started to basically congeal. When I say that, I mean guys with more money would buy the land, and next thing you know, they're big farmers. There's no little farmers.
Was it the railroad was the biggest employer in your town? In Centralia?
No, that wouldn't have been, because my dad was he was the depot agent in town, but that was
so he was the one representative.
Well, but then they had a section gang. The guys would go out and repair the track and all that stuff. But anyway, getting back to Centralia, 3 grocery stores, 2 drug stores, 2 doctors, 2 pharmacies, 4 or 5 gas stations, filling stations.
You're living large for a town of 500.
Well, and 2 hardware stores, and and everybody knew everybody. It was back in those, and that, like, I look back on, I go, that was such a golden age that you realize you've lived a life. It's like, and of course, I just turned 75 the other day, so it's kind of like, well, let's just assume you're getting 100 out of it. I'm in that last laugh, you might say.
How many seconds?
But I don't even think that 100.
You know how many seconds you've calculated that you've got?
No, but I got to be, well, at 75, we do it real quickly. I'd say it's, I'm up around, 2 billion and 800 million? I don't know.
There's some good seconds. To your point, though, remember, like you say, I remember summer break. Like kindergarten to college, or it was forever, and summer break was forever, and now you blink of an eye and we're staring at September. And you used to talk about, was it cut grass, or there were certain things that would hit you that you knew you had to report early because of football.
Right. Well, to this day, I mean, if you take me out based on growing up, and that stuff, like there's memories that you have that you don't realize are still there. They're buried, and they've been buried for years. If you took me out in the country, if you took me out there after a rain, I could tell you exactly when we were driving by a cornfield, just by the odor that the corn gives off. If we were driving by an alfalfa field they'd just cut, I could tell you immediately they're baling alfalfa someplace. It's so funny because that's happened to me in the past. And like you were talking about, years ago, I was driving down Route 7 going to Leesburg one day, and it was noon, and one of the radio stations around here plays the national anthem at noon.
Right.
And I'm driving down the road, and I got the radio station on. All of a sudden, they breaks into the Star Spangled Banner, and all of a sudden, and they're cutting the grass, the grass, they're cutting the grass in the median, and all of a sudden, the hair starts standing up on the back of my neck. I'm getting goosebumps. And I'm going, what the hell's going on? And it dawned on me. I was standing there on the sidelines at RFK.
At RFK.
We was getting ready to play ball. In fact, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. But, time, that's kind of a weird thing.
Well, they're getting ready to play some ball back out in Ashburn, a new stadium name. That was announced yesterday.
Yeah. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, because FedEx bailed on them last year, and it became...
That's not really surprising, right?
Well, no, that had been in play going back, 2 years, maybe 3.
Well, Fred and the lawsuit.
Fred Smith and all of that, and with all of the junk going around the previous ownership. So it was Commander's Field, but now it is Northwest. They're calling it Northwest Stadium.
Northwest. And
Northwest is a credit union, and they had just announced a new deal with them yesterday. So that's a good sign for the.
So folks that go out there, they'll see Northwest written on the side of the stadium.
Northwest, it's there already, and so they've got some good things happening off the field. And to be fair to everybody involved here, and we've been doing this for a long time, and it's been pretty bleak in these parts around here.
True.
So this is the first season where the new guys, they got the keys to the house last year in the middle of July.
Well, yeah, exactly.
They were hamstrung. They had to do whatever Ron Rivera and whatever So this is their first full season where it is a new day, and the turnover. They literally, John, with the announcement on their 53-man roster, damn near anybody had anything to do with Ron Rivera is gone.
What do you mean, player-wise?
Yeah, player-wise.
I mean, how many guys out of the roster would you say?
Well, I will tell you.
What percentage? 50% of the roster?
So I think they're down to like, I know 5 out of the 7 draft picks from last year are gone.
5 out of 7.
And Forbes, the number 1 pick, who had a terrible year last year, has been struggling, and he's still, there's still the jury's out on him. But bottom line is, every phase of that franchise is
new and improved.
Is new.
It's new.
We'll find out about the improvements because the front office, the coaching staff it's a who's who. They are putting some money into this operation. And you're going to see it in your nacho prices and your beer prices and what have you. But listen, if this is what it takes to build a winning culture and a winning franchise, then let's go get them, because we are due as due can be, which is why, we celebrate 82 to 92 and knowing how fleeting these types of moments can come and go. For a lot of them, they truly are once in a lifetime.
Yeah, you can say that. I've met Dan Quinn. I like him. He's a good fellow. Mm-hmm. I think he went to school, played football in
Salisbury State.
Yeah, that's what I was telling somebody. I couldn't remember where it was. But yeah, and you got to remember, that guy could very well be, had won a Super Bowl as a head coach. I mean, what happened in that game is like, and yet the irony is I'm guessing now, and I don't know exactly, but I think somebody could make the argument that Kyle Shanahan, who's been to a Super Bowl since that, was the guy that kind of masterminded when that game turned on a dime with a sack where they were, that put them out of field goal range, which probably would have sealed the game. So, and like I said, I like Dan, and I think that, he's certainly got a lot of energy, and he's getting another opportunity. So, like you say, you have to sit back and see what happens. Interesting to me, and I looked this up last night because I got to thinking, man, people love football. I'm telling you, love football. That you might say that it is, who was it? It was I don't know which one it was, but one of the communist people of Russia. Oh, what was his name? Is the writer that basically that wrote, which was the guy that came out with a manifesto that was all about socialism and all that stuff. I can see
Marx?
his face. Marx, yeah, Karl Marx. And he said that religion was the opium of the people. Well, that might have been true for Russia back at the turn of the last century, but football is the opium of the American people. You have to look it up. You go online and look up professional leagues in professional football leagues in the United States. Todd, I think there's close to 10. There's this XFL, that there's something going on there. There's obviously the National Football League, that's plain as day. But there's also all these little different leagues around the country, some with 5 teams, and that's basically in New York State. I've never heard of these leagues before. And I'm trying to think of how do they say they're professional, but I think they're probably more like semi-pro teams. They've always been around, but they're so far under the radar. You never, ever really hear of, like the Pottstown Eagles or something like that. Do you remember?
Right.
So,
well, the minor
point
leagues
being is, and then throw in college football.
Right.
And it's just like people cannot literally get enough football. And to me, it's passing me by. I have to confess that. I don't, and I think that, based on, we're going to chat about that. Maybe we can roll into that. But I don't even recognize the game. And I'm talking about the games played professionally. I don't really watch college football that much. I don't watch that much professional football. But it's just not the same game. And at some point, I have to believe, and people may or may not want to hear this, which really doesn't make any difference, the game is going to evolve into a touch type of football game. I think that's where it's going.
There's
because
no question.
That's almost where it is right now. And I'm not criticizing anybody, but it's the progression of injury and just the way the game, it's changing in such a way that it's a lot of speed, and the old, basically the manhood issues are all gone. You can be basically a chicken shit and make a pretty good living in the NFL. Back in my day, son, the man had to answer for the way that he done.
Was no hiding. It's fascinating to watch how they used to glorify, and you guys were the TV generation, the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
And made it nationwide, and it is. Football is tribal. We got 32 tribes, and it's at an all-time high with and continuing. Every year
it never fails.
You've struggled with this over the years because you, as a player, I think you're number 156 in the Hall of Fame.
164. I just got my mug.
164. So I can call you.
I think it's 164.
Yeah. So, and putting myself in your perspective, going, whatever. When people ask, do you think you could play in today's NFL? And your answer has always been, and rightfully so, I don't think today's players could have played when we played.
Well, they could play, but once again, like I said, it would become a manhood issue. And I'm not saying that these guys aren't tough enough. It's just that they haven't had to go down that road.
Well, the rules were so different.
Joe Gibbs told me Joe Gibbs 2.0 when he came back. He told me, he said, if I tell these guys we're going to go out and practice for 2 hours, they look at me like I've lost my mind. It's like, hey, basically, as somebody says, come on, man. Come on,
this
man.
pick right here, Mr. Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Along those lines, how many times a year now can they actually be in full pads for practice? It's like less than 10, I think.
It's shocking. I think the last time we had the discussion, it was 12 or 14. It was an odd number.
I don't think it's that many.
It was an odd number. They probably reduce it. We don't,
But it was 3 days. Every practice, there was no such thing as going on, maybe on Saturday.
Everything's a glorified walkthrough now, John, because the money is so big, which is why the preseason.
I mean, Fred, for injuring somebody?
Yes, no question. We don't know really anything about this Commanders team. And anybody that's trying to tell you differently, whatever, it's not true. We have glimpses of Jaden Daniels. And boy, he sure looks the part, cut out of central casting. Big guy, big arm.
How tall
can
is
spin it. 6'4", I believe.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Sounds like they got Doug in that field. And he can run.
And he can spin it. This kid's got an arm. But he's had limited series. I think he threw a total of 12, 14 passes in the preseason. And that's for every team, though. It's just not the Commanders. It's every team because they're going to get rid of the preseason. It's all but done. I guarantee you.
And it makes sense.
No question.
Perfect sense.
The volume of money is too big. Everybody shares in the upside. Expand the rosters. Do whatever you got to do to make it happen. Preseason is a relic of the past, and I believe that'll change as soon as next year or 26. Just based on how they're going. They've continued. They played 3 preseason games this year, and it's really a glorified tryout for your super backup, right?
Exactly. The guys at the bottom of the barrel, they're expendable. But it's for the expendables.
Yeah, but it's a year-round sport. They don't want to see the superstars or the up-and-coming superstars who are their top picks get injured in this. Basically, and you used to call them exhibition games, and commission everybody else are not exhibition, right?
Well, but now they don't really, like you said, I doubt they really care anymore. Because it's always, to me, that's so disingenuous because, like, well, what do you want to call it? What do you want to call it? It means something? It doesn't mean anything. The only thing it means is on an individual level. It really means, did I go out and play well? It doesn't mean that the fans are going, oh, man, it's the first game, it's the first exhibition game, preseason game, and we lost. It's like, well, how many times? Didn't the year that the team won Super Bowl 17, didn't they lose all 4?
I think so.
All 4 exhibition games?
On Super Bowl 17.
Well, that's because John Riggins didn't play an exhibition game.
I was going to say.
John Riggins did not play an exhibition game.
I'm going to have to ask you because I think you still played 6 preseason games then.
No.
They reduced it to 4 by then or 5?
16. When they played 16 games, they got two regular season games added. They dropped 2 exhibition games.
So that was the trade-off back then. Well, it's coming. But to your point, John, it's at an all-time high. There are
top 50 shows this past year. I'm talking about the past football season. NFL, all but 2, right, on television.
93 out of the top 100.
Oh, that's
93 out of the top 100. And it only takes something extraordinary like a presidential debate or some unbelievable news story to knock it out of that. It's the last bastion of live programming that people, there's guaranteed audience, which is why you're seeing Amazon and all these different media deals. You know, they said years ago, I think when the league was about 14 or $15 billion, their goal from Goodell and the boys were to be a $25 billion enterprise. I recall that. And they're almost there. They're just going to be just under it this year, probably like 23, 24, $25 billion. The advent of gambling, legalized gambling, fantasy football, and all the streaming options, which is why you got the opening night game Thursday night. There's an opening night game Friday in South America.
For the NFL?
Yep.
Who's playing in South America?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Well, the fact you know there's a game down there, I didn't even know.
I want to say it's maybe
Brazil?
Philly and San Francisco.
Do you know?
I think it's in Brazil. I got a question for you. Just in the last, I've seen it before, but there was another article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday or the day before, and it had to do with private equity in the NFL. And that was approved yesterday.
Right. Which it's almost like, and the NFL is dictating all the terms. And people are still, I mean,
to the point of, you're lucky we're going to even allow you to have a seat at the table.
There you go.
Every other league has accepted it, and some it's a lot higher amount of investments they've been allowing. But the NFL knows what they got.
So what's that mean? How does the private?
So the private equity is being capped at, I believe they're only allowing them to invest maybe 10%. This is totally fresh. They approved it yesterday, and they only allowed 3 preferred and then a handful of others that they will consider. So they had already pre-screened, these are some of the top firms in the world, or definitely in the country, that they would even consider to be participants in investing. Because for all the new stadiums and there's a lot of new stadiums that need to come into play. So they want to bring in that new money and not have the league, because a lot of the local governments are not funding as much as they want to anymore.
I think that's excellent. The NFL is so strong, but at the same time, it's what they sell back. Well, think how many jobs we're going to create and all that stuff. So, hey, come on, we need some tax money.
Well, that's always been bullshit.
I find it repugnant that, because I think that's all bullshit, to tell you the truth. I find it repugnant. These people have more than enough money to pay their own way.
John, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Of course,
the Kansas City Chiefs are threatening to move.
Right.
They've threatened to move if they don't get their way, and they're holding Kansas City hostage.
They've been there for 60 years.
Yeah, and they're doing it now after winning the Super Bowl and being at the highest again. So, again, they don't want to use their own money, and the rich get richer, and it continues to be. So it just speaks to the unbelievable popularity. We will all be glued around our TV sets. It's how we mark our time in today's world, that everything is right back in the world. Our college football Saturdays, our football on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, and the occasional Fridays and the occasional Saturdays now for the NFL.
Then you get to the end of the season when college football's over with, and it's pretty much 24/7. It starts on Thursday and doesn't end until Monday night, and people still can't get enough of it.
Well, it's good to be in the NFL. It's a good business to be in.
Let me ask you this, because we were talking about this yesterday, and we're talking about how the game has changed. Explain, because I'm aware that they've made some changes on the kickoff.
Well, we're going to get into detail on the new kickoff rule, so I'm not going to poison you with it today, because I know you haven't seen or know anything about it, but we're going to have video next week's show.
And it doesn't sound like
I want to get your fresh perspective on this and a couple of other rule changes.
Is that when I roll out the all-defensive team?
You've been sleeping on this for about 30 years.
Yeah, no, it's 20, but yeah, it's still there, which I think is still revolutionary. But that's something we can visit later on.
We'll debut on that. And so the Commanders heading into the year, remember, they were god-awful 4-13 last year. Defense was dead last. Offense was pretty morbid as well. So I think anything...
Let's face it, if this kid that they just drafted at LSU, if he's got something going on, they got a shot.
Yeah, no question.
It's just the way it comes down.
And if they got a line that can protect him,
I mean, even that, I would say, is if Joe Burrow from Cincinnati, or when I say with the Bengals, they made it to that Super Bowl years ago. What's been about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, 3.
And when LA's the one that beat them in that Super Bowl, wasn't it? That was the Rams. I mean, that kid I got so much respect for that guy. I haven't watched him play ever since that time.
He got the shit beat out of him.
He did, and he got injured right away. I don't know, was it his first year that he got the serious knee injury, and he came back the second year? Could he go to the Super Bowl? I mean, what that guy went through. But my point being is, well, they didn't protect him, and he still got him to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying, well, you got to protect your quarterback because obviously it's long term. You know, if you let him get beat up enough, you're going to be looking for another quarterback. But yeah, I just think that if that kid can play, I think that it changes the whole thing because the position now is. It is a track meet nowadays, and that's what I was referring to earlier. If you guys, and that's what made Brady so good because he saw the whole field. You really couldn't, even though he was like a newborn colt in the backfield, he could hardly stand up.
Right.
But at the same time, you couldn't get to him because he'd get rid of the ball so quickly.
His computer, his vision, his ability to read and know where to go.
Physical ability, I would say, somewhat average, but he was superior when it came to being able to see a football field to know where to take the football.
Oh,
and that's what really I think is the key to the game nowadays because, like I said, it always to me it kind of can tell basically from my perspective only because it's just the way I see it. But when you see guys that got their basically look like they're wearing shorts, they got their pants up above their knees are and I'm looking at it, and we're talking about running backs and I look at that and go, you got to be kidding me. There's just no way you could ever have lasted, a game or a season if that's all the more protection you had when you played. Because the game is played vertically. It's all vertical. And I don't necessarily mean down the field. That's vertical. But I mean players are vertical. Mm-hmm. That used to be they played horizontally. Mm-hmm. And there's the big difference. Anytime you watch, just watch them rush the passer. Now that hadn't changed, or there's no such thing really as drive blocking anymore. Mm-hmm. It's basketball. You screen your man off, and the back, cuts, knows where the color is, and he'll go on the opposite side of the color. And like I said, and yet the game, and I have to say this because it is a passing game, it's more exciting, and the way they've changed it seems to me that they've given teams the ability to come from lopsided scores and still win, which makes the game more exciting for the fans. Because and then I always use this analogy, in golf, and I'm not a golfer, and I could kind of care less about golf, but you get a guy and you're in the Masters, or just name a tournament, or any tournament, doesn't have to be even the Masters, but you're on the 18th green, and somebody's got a 30-foot putt. If he sinks a 30-foot putt, he's going to, he'll remain, under par, and he's going to win the turn. So all of a sudden he lines up, and everybody, and of course the announcers, he's on the green, and it's everybody's whispering. They can't. It's like I'm going. Shouldn't somebody go? Hey, I hope you shake it. Kind of like Caddyshack.
You want some RFK Stadium?
Yeah, it's like put some pressure on the guy. Get the boo birds.
You want some street golf, right?
That's what it would call it. And you ride around from hole to hole on a chopper.
You're just heckling guys.
A chopper with a sidecar. That's what you got. Your caddy drives you. Anyway,
I don't think the PGA boys. I think you're going to see a little soft. A little soft.
Well, they might like the motorcycle with a sidecar. But I was going to say, so the guy lines up and he strokes the ball, and the ball's rolling and rolling and rolling, and it looks like maybe it's going to. Yes, he's got. It's same thing, the drop backs late in the game. There's like 12 seconds left on the clock. The bomb, and the ball's drifting and drifting and drifting, and all of a sudden you see the DB and the receiver gets it. He's in the end zone, touchdown, and all of a sudden they pulled it out. They come from a three touchdowns down, and they win the game. Kind of like actually the game that Atlanta played against New England in a weird sort of way.
28-3.
But so I get that. In other words, it's evolving in a way. It does make it's entertainment. I'm sorry. I mean, to me, that's basically what it is.
Entertainment and also player safety because they know they got a problem.
Well, that's my guess is why it's really listen, if it was what I'm trying to say, it's really more players. It's really more the entertainment. Well, actually, it's half and half. I shouldn't interrupt you because. Clearly, the NFL doesn't want to be paying, for concussions and all that stuff as time goes on. So they're eliminating that, and maybe there's some altruistic reasons for it. To me, kind of when you get down to it, I'm going, I don't know. It's kind of like kind of like when who was it? One of the major car companies years ago. They said, "Yeah, you're going to have to recall this vehicle because there's X amount of people are going to get killed. There's going to happen." They said, "Well, how much is that going to cost?" Basically, it was, well, let's just leave it the way it is and let them sue us, and we'll just keep going.
Well, that's the fine line.
Kind of that mentality.
The body of work with the generation of players now showing that this is bad for your health. Pretty bad for your health overall. So they've done what they can to change the rules to minimize it, but we still want our gladiators. We still want the collisions. That's why we love the game.
Well, that's what I get back to, though. It's evolving in front of our eyes in the sense that I should be the one talking about this. The running back, the lowly running back who used to be the star, one of the stars of the team. Only you could have, Buffalo Bills. There's O.J. Simpson, right? There was nobody else on the team except O.J. Simpson. He was the running back. That's 40, 50 years ago. Nowadays, clearly you just get a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield and maybe pick up a block or two.
I don't want to say you guys are replaceable, but you guys are a dime a dozen now.
At least, and on the food chain, I think it is it's only the punters and the kickers that make less money than a running back.
Literally, and I popped out on you a couple of years ago, and it's gotten worse. The divide is a lot worse because, and the thing is, you had a couple of guys that got some record money running backs in the last 5 years. A couple of them are out of the league. They didn't come close to realizing they only got X amount guaranteed, as we know. But the guys that are getting all the dough. Quarterbacks by miles. Right. Wide receivers.
Or number two.
CeeDee Lamb and what he just signed for, the second highest contract ever for a non-quarterback, and the guarantees with that. So wide receivers, pass catching
anything
tight
with
ends,
the passing game.
Pass catching tight end. Defensive edge rusher, cornerbacks, right?
Yeah.
And that's the game's all in the air, right? Guys to go get the quarterback, guys to cover the wide receiver, wide receiver.
That's the game.
Those are the glory positions.
Mm-hmm. And that's where all the money is, for sure.
That is where all the money is. Speaking of where all the money is, John, we'll close out today. And we'll get into this now that we're back in the saddle again. But this caught my attention because...
Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad we're cutting it a little bit short because I'm getting saddle sores already.
We got to ease you back.
I'm not used to sitting here.
So last week, the highest price ever paid for a piece of sports memorabilia, they held an auction.
This got to be good. I don't know what this...
They held an auction, and this was Babe Ruth's Game 3 of the 1932 World Series, where the Babe called his shot. And they verified, now this jersey had been sold before in 2005 for $940,000.
In 19 when?
2005, same age as your car, as your truck. And but it was only linked to the 1932 World Series. And upon further review and investigation and other type of forensic photography, they realized that jersey now, and I'd love to see the proof of that, but this jersey now
I'm with you
was
on that.
Game 3 when the Babe called his shot. And they held an auction last year, Heritage Auctions, which is one of the largest auction houses for sports collectibles. Mm-hmm. Sold for $24.12 million. Over $24 million, John.
In approximately 20 years, it appreciated, almost 25 times?
Yeah.
25.
I would love to see the forensic evidence on this.
That's what I'm kind of trying to figure. How would you know that after all those years?
Yeah. A rare mint condition Topps baseball card of Mickey Mantle from 1952. That sold for $12.6 million in 2022.
A rookie card?
It was
usually they're rookie cards.
I don't know for sure if that was his rookie card, but generally it is. The Ruth jersey eclipsed Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls jersey from Game 1 of the '98 Finals. That sold for $10.1 million.
How do they know? I mean, I got to give. Well, Babe Ruth never kept it. Somebody. And I'm going to think back in those days because, they didn't have that kind of money. How many jerseys would they have or how many uniforms would they have?
It's like
you had a road uniform and
it's like anything else today, right? If you're verifying, antiques, rare art, memorabilia falls, they can go back and trace what the material is. And it's pretty complex and pretty fascinating. Now, I just happen to know you got some pretty valuable stuff sitting in El Garaje. at Casa.
Let's face it ain't in that league, but I mean, you know.
I think the game-worn jersey for 4th and 1, 1983 Super Bowl, that's a 1 of 1. I got to believe that's worth some serious cake, John. Don't you have your full uniform of that?
Yeah. No, I don't have the whole uniform. I just got the jersey.
But the helmet?
I got my helmet, yeah.
So you got the helmet, the jersey.
Shoulder pads.
Shoulder pads. So the only thing you don't have are the pants.
The only thing I don't have is the pants.
How about
and the shoes? I might have the shoes, actually.
Yeah, because you have a ton of shoes.
Right, yeah.
But so anyways, anybody want to, we'll start the bidding. We'll come back and we'll let you know where we're going to start the bidding at on your jersey here.
It'll be well south of 24 million. I ain't going to start at 24, but I'd sure like to get up to 24. We get up to 24, Todd. I'm sorry, but you might be the last time you see me. I'll be heading south in that red Ford Country sedan, just like Charles, or what's his name, Harold Ensley.
All right, Riggo, good to be back in the saddle with you. We'll be back here on a weekly basis, and NFL season is right around the corner. We'll be heading into Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
We'll keep that up.
Alrighty, Toddy. I'm out of here. Riggo, he's out.